our Ekadashi lecture, and we've been speaking about the glories of many Vaishnavacharyas. We've been delving into some really beautiful pastimes, and today we'll be, like the others, we'll be exploring a really wonderful acharya. So of course we need to start with our Mangalacharya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha Kripa sindubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So today I wanted to speak about the glories of a Vaishnav that I kind of stumbled upon, kind of at the right place at the right time. And I was doing research for the last Ekadashi, and I stumbled upon the glories of a Vaishnava who I thought, well, we have to talk about this Ekadashi. This Ekadashi is Uttan Ekadashi, which means that all of the devas who went to sleep 4 months ago at the beginning of Chaturmas have now awakened. And they're now getting ready to commence the universal duties. So even Lord Shiva, he has been staying awake, taking care of the universe, and now he finally gets to take a break. So even Lord Vishnu will wake up, all of the devatas will resume their prior duties. And so usually I talk about Bhishma, this Ekadashi, because it is the beginning of Bhishma Panchak. 5 days that we honor Bhishma Dev, the great general and grandsire from the Mahabharata. And he starts preparing to leave his body. And he is very eager to see Krishna. And so because it is the beginning of Bhishma Panchak, usually, and in previous years, I had spoken about Bhishma. But today, we're going to do a little bit of a pivot, because there are some devotees that kind of get a little bit forgotten or glanced over in the calendar, which sometimes when we're looking at appearance days and disappearance days, it can just start to look like a list of names. But all of our wonderful Vaishnav literatures assure us that it is not simply a list of names. And even if it were a list of names and we didn't know all of these devotees, simply reading, reciting, chanting their names, saying their names, gives us great benefit. It can give us love for Krishna. Just hearing and saying the names of these wonderful devotees can give us the joy that we are hankering after. So it's worth it. The devotee that we'll be speaking about today, his name is Rasikananda. And the reason that I say he gets a little bit glanced over is because he happens to share his appearance day with the date of Govardhan Puja. And so Govardhan Puja is filled with many things. It's in the middle of the Diwali festival, which is actually 5 days long. It shares its date with Bali, Daityaraj Puja. Then, of course, there's the main event. Giri Govardhan is such a superstar. So he gets his day. We talk about so many things that happen during Kartik. And so Rasikananda sometimes can get a little bit glanced over. But as I happened to be doing research for the last Ekadashi, I was reading and stumbled upon Rasikananda Dev. And I was looking and thinking, his appearance day is actually coming. And I found myself, the more research I did on him, the more happy and blissful I felt about his story and his journey. His story is extensive, but maybe we can talk just about a few things. So the time, just to put it in reference for all of us, 56 years after the departure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in many fortunate places, thanks to the grace of the Panchatattva, their disciples, and the disciples of those disciples, were still keeping the Sankirtan movement thriving. The kingdom of Utkala was one such fortunate place where this Sankirtan movement was still going strong. The sounds of Mridanga drums would boom through the air, and the chime of the kartals would cut through the atmosphere, dispelling all inauspiciousness. Devotees often gathered together to call out the holy names of Sri Krishna. As they sang, they clapped their hands. They would sway, and somehow they would maintain their lives just off of the memories of the stories that they heard about that most divine Panchatattva who had inundated the world as they knew it with an ocean of love of God. So these are the second generation devotees, which sound a lot like us, living off the legends and the memory of the Panchatattva, living off of the many stories of those who had seen Gaura Chandra and could tell them somehow something about what this Sankirtan movement was like. So as the Kirtan party would often move through the land of Utkal, they would call out to the citizens, just as their Kirtan preceptors had instructed them to. O Jivas, O brothers, everyone is looking for shelter in this material world. Everyone is seeking lasting happiness. Everyone is seeking protection against fear. If you just chant these names of Krishna, they will fulfill all of your desires. This holy name is our real wealth and is the absolute treasure of our lives. The holy name is our ultimate shelter. Just give your hearts to Krishna. With their arms upraised, inhibitions thrown to the wind, they would beseech whoever they came across to just once chant the name of Krishna and urge them to witness the profound transformation that the holy name could have on the heart. Many times, as the kirtan would reach a crescendo, many citizens would run toward the kirtan party. With bright smiles and open arms, the devotees would welcome one and all to chant with them. However, these years, after the Panchatattva had wound up their earthly activities, Now, as the citizens got closer, the Vaishnavas would realize that their faces did not look blissful. Lips curled in disdain, sneers on their faces. They would often brandish sticks and bottles and makeshift weapons that they would wave menacingly in front of the faces of the assembled Vaishnavas. You Vaishnavas are lazy, good-for-nothing leeches. You beg and beg until we've got nothing left. Utkal's poverty crisis is on your heads. It is because of useless beggars like you that the rest of us bear the burden of the poverty of society. Can't you see what a desperate situation Utkala is in? And instead you ask us to sing and clap our hands as though that will solve all of our problems. This was now a regular occurrence. Angry shouts coming from every single one of the citizens. Before the Vaishnavas would have a chance to reason with them, the citizens would begin their attack. Beating and pushing many of the Vaishnavas, they hurled insults and stones alike. Calling out that the god of the Vaishnavas was gone, they chased the Kirtan party out of the streets, forcing them to retreat to wherever they could. Utkal was nearly lost. Mere decades after the departure of Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, all of their dearest associates, Utkala wanted nothing to do with the Sankirtan movement. People within that kingdom would kill one another, even for trifling amounts of money. Even the lives of Brahmins and saints were no longer considered sacred. Utkal was filled with rogues. Even the ruling class offered no protection to the Vaishnavas. There was hardly anyone who was interested in hearing the chanting of the holy name. The devotees were repeatedly forced out of towns like Utkala and into the wilderness. Interestingly enough, what do we think we might do in cases like this? What do we think we would do if we were forced with such discouragement, to say the least? These devotees turn their faces toward the sky, and they would often cry out to the Lord of the heart. And they would cry out to Krishna, firstly, to forgive all of these people who were attacking them. And can we imagine? It almost sounds as though this is something out of the Bible, right? Forgive all of our attackers. Please, somehow, give them knowledge of you, Krishna. Somehow, fill their lives with the chanting of your holy name, O Krishna. But also, please do something. We are drowning in an ocean of sorrow. Please send us some way that will save the future of your very own Sankirtan movement. Oh my Lord, please help us. So not only were they praying for the forgiveness and the future of the bhakti of those who were attacking them, but they still recognized, we need help. Please help us. Finally, Shri Krishna answered their prayers. And in Utkala, in a small province of that kingdom, on the day after Diwali, the first day of that Amavasya, right, this new lunar cycle, on the day of Govardhan Puja, there was a son born to one of the kings of that province. The king's name was Achyutananda. And Achyutananda had been dreaming of a child, praying for a child. He and his wife would discuss topics of Krishna and then pray again and again and again for a child. They finally got the child, whose name was Rasikananda. This Rasikananda was a jewel mine of devotional, wonderful qualities. He is written about within a book called Rasika Mangala. And so in the town of Rohini, which is said to be non-different from Navadvip, Mathura, or even Ayodhya, all the places where Lord Krishna resides are equal to Vaikuntha. And the same is true of the residences of his devotees. This town of Rohini became incredibly fortunate because of the appearance of Rasikananda. So when it seemed as though Utkala was at its worst, this is when we get the appearance of this wonderful devotee. Sometimes we can think about that with our own lives. When we feel as though we are at our worst, when we feel as though we have nothing left to turn to, we can pray to Krishna for help. And we can know that as bad as we think it's gotten, that's when Krishna's mercy comes flooding in. When we think that there is nothing left for us to do, when we think that hope is nearly lost, that's usually when Krishna swoops in to save the day. And so not only was Achyutananda and his wife Bhavani praying for this child, but everybody in the area was praying for someone to help them. And so when they heard that Bhavani was about to give birth, everyone in the town of Rohini came to wish her auspiciousness, prosperity, good luck. Vaishnavas and Brahmins filled the atmosphere with the sound of Lord Hari's name. It also happened to be a solar eclipse at that time, which, if we paid attention, we just had the same kind of circumstances astrologically. This past Diwali, on the new moon, there was also a solar eclipse. During eclipse times, Vaishnavas come together and they chant loudly the holy name. They beseech Krishna for his mercy. Even those who only kind of believe, because of customs, because of traditions and rituals, they also go and chant the holy name, because that's what's done during an eclipse. And so with the right conditions, with this solar eclipse, Rasikananda chooses to make his advantageous appearance. Because it was Diwali, the festival of lights, there were lamps illuminating every corner of the city. It seemed like there was no night. It was so incredibly lit up that I'm sure it would rival Times Square. There were recitations from the Vedas, the Gita, the Mahabharata, the Puranas, the Ramayana. The sound of Hari's name mingled with that of conches and different musical instruments. This was when Rasikananda made his appearance. Everyone within their abodes, even the abodes of the demigods and the human beings, they became jubilant and eager to visit this newborn child. Rasikananda, just after his birth, began to cry like a regular child. However, he was not at all ordinary. The effulgence of his body illuminated his entire house. He had a moon-like face, decorated with a broad forehead, a firm nose, eyes like the leaves of a lotus, finely shaped ears, and a head full of black curly hair. His lips were red, like bimba fruits, which we've been singing about throughout all of Kartik. And one year, and not just for 1 year, but for many years, I had been wondering, what does this bimba fruit look like? And finally, I found out. It is bright red. If any of you have seen the vegetable tindura, which is like a small gourd vegetable, if you leave it on the vine to ripen, it becomes reddish. And that is what is known as bimba fruit. And so tindura usually is eaten when it is still green. But if you let it ripen, it turns a beautiful reddish color. And so his lips were red like the bimba fruit, just like Krishna's. They say that his shoulders were like those of an elephant. His hands were like the stalk of a lotus. Sweet arms. The child's fingers were decorated with nails resembling kunda flowers, small jasmine flowers. Kunda flowers are often used to describe what Krishna's teeth look like. And so Krishna is called Mukunda. He whose smile looks like it is filled with kunda flowers, small jasmine bud flowers. So this was the child's fingernails. His broad chest charmed the three worlds. His navel was very beautiful, and the threefold curve of his waist was like that of a lion. His knees and waist were beautifully shaped like a banana tree. The marks on his lotus feet were very charming. His nails shone brightly, and his complexion was a bluish-black color. Seeing the beauty of her son, Bhavani was overwhelmed. His father, Achyuta, had everyone come and give blessings to the child. And so many people came and blessed the child. May you have a long life. May you please the Divine Lord. But many people came and said, may you be the future of the Vaishnav movement. What a blessing. As a second generation devotee, this kind of blessing is so dear to my heart. Somehow, I aspire to gain the blessing. Just may you continue. May you continue to be the future of Srila Prabhupada's movement. This is the kind of wonderful blessing that they heaped upon Rasikananda, and not just from one person, but from many people. May you be the future of Lord Chaitanya's Vaishnav Sankirtan movement. So Rasikananda had quite a lot to live up to. But it was okay. It seemed as though he was up for the challenge. When they had his Annaprashna ceremony, his first grain ceremony, they put very many items out in front of the child. A dull sword, to see if maybe he will have Kshatriya tendencies. Grains, gold and silver, Srimad Bhagavatam. So many items they placed in front of the child. They say that he crawled eagerly toward the Srimad Bhagavatam. He touched the Srimad Bhagavatam first, picked up the Srimad Bhagavatam, held it to his chest, and shed tears. It was said that only the chanting of the holy name was once again able to get this child to stop crying. But conversely, narrations of the Bhagavatam would also cause him to cry. But that was a different kind of crying. This crying was in ecstasy. At just a young age, Rasikananda became incredibly proficient in all of the Vedas. He started his learning and he began to excel. He also got married at a young age to a wonderful girl full of all good qualities named Shama Dasi. And it is said that she was a jewel mine also of all good qualities. She was always serving the Vaishnavas. She was always listening to recitations of the Srimad Bhagavatam. They would chant no less than 64 rounds each day, and it says that she, throughout her entire life, was completely dedicated to Lord Govinda. These are people after my own heart. I felt as though the more that I heard about Rasikananda, the more that I wanted to hear about Rasikananda. Finally, as Rasikananda, who was also known as Murari at that time, was sitting in a lonely place, and he was wondering, when oh when will I get the shelter of a spiritual master? When will I gain the priceless jewel of having a guru? After all, Adipurusha Prabhu was singing about the glories of the spiritual master, about all of the crest jewel of the ornaments of devotion that our spiritual masters give us. Rasikananda was similarly wondering, when will I get this? And as he would chant and lament, he heard an Akashvani, a voice from the sky. And our dear Indradyumna Maharaj gives such a wonderful lecture on the life and times of Rasikananda. And he was saying, he said, I would love to hear an Akashvani just one time. And I thought to myself, same. Wouldn't we all? And sometimes when we are praying, and we are praying to Krishna, there are times when we feel as though we've gotten messages in the heart. Maybe we can't say that they were a celestial voice from the sky, but you just know. And so I urge us all not to take those messages lightly. That calling from deep inside the heart, it is real. If we know anything, it is that Krishna has said time and time again that he is seated within everyone's hearts, guiding the wanderings of all living beings, directing them, coaching them, speaking with us, reciprocating with us. So those messages from the heart are absolutely real. Maybe that is our Akashvani for today. So, Rasikananda's voice from the sky said, don't be an anxiety. You will become the disciple of Sri Shamananda. Shamananda Pandit we've spoken about several times. He is one of the only, if not the absolute only devotee to have personally had his tilak placed upon his forehead by Srimati Radharani herself. He was formerly known as Dukhi Krishna. Right? He got initiated by Hridaya Chaitanya. And then he was re-initiated again as Shamananda by Srimati Radharani. He found her anklet, gave it back to her. And when he gave it back to her, she said, you've given me such immense joy. These are my favorite anklets. And so she placed the anklet on his forehead, which left a mark, which became known as the tilak of the Shamanandis. It's a very unique tilak that you can see all over Vrindavan. And so she placed that mark upon his forehead and gave him the name Shamananda. the one who has given such immense pleasure to Shama, who is none other than Srimati Radharani. This was to be the guru of Rasikananda. Similarly, Shamananda, who had been thousands of miles away, was also in meditation and also had a similar vision. Krishna himself instructed him, go to Utkala, find Rasikananda. He is going to be your stalwart disciple. So from the time that Rasikananda heard this wonderful celestial voice, he became incredibly jubilant, and he began to repeatedly murmur the name of Shamananda as though chanting japa. So Rasika Mangala says, just reciting the names of the great devotees can give solace and joy and jubilation to our hearts. Now we actually see it. This is it in practical reinforcement. And so he just sat chanting the name of Shamananda, Shamananda. Even if we don't know who these devotees are, we should chant their names. Speak those names. And those devotees will reveal themselves to all of us. So he spent most of the night sleeplessly calling out to his master. Finally, toward the early morning, he drifted off to the land of dreams, where he saw his spiritual master, the very figure of charm and grace. Smilingly, Shamananda informed him, when tomorrow the eastern sky becomes tinged with pink, we will meet one another. With this promise from his spiritual master, Rasikananda eagerly waits for the next day. And this is where Gaur Govinda Maharaj would famously say, Krishna gives you Guru, and then Guru gives you Krishna. We often wonder sometimes, how can we find our spiritual masters? After all, this is not a light decision. This is a decision that impacts not only this lifetime, but every future lifetime. Right? We sing, Chakodan dilo je janme janme Prabhu se. Oh, my divine spiritual master, you have given me the knowledge. You have opened my eyes. You have given me that divine vision. Life after life, you are my eternal master. So sometimes we're thinking, how does one even find a guru? How does one even find someone who's going to understand them on a soul deep level where they can understand all of the things that they are going through? How? We pray to Krishna. Krishna gives us our guru. And then our guru, in a wonderful cycle of bliss, of transcendental love, our gurus teach us everything we need to know to obtain Krishna. And in so many cases, when a devotee is sincere enough, eager enough, and they feel as though they are still lacking this transcendental guidance, there have been so many cases where Krishna says, I appeared in the heart of that person. I compelled them to give you your initiation. It was me giving my direct orders to save you. So Krishna is eager to save every single one of us, by hook or by crook, however he can, even if he has to inspire the hearts of our spiritual masters. Even if he has to advent himself as our spiritual masters, Krishna is that eager to save every single one of us. There's no lack of room in the spiritual world. In fact, we already have our places there. We already, all of us, have an unvanquishable relationship with Krishna. So it's not as though, oh, I have to reserve my spot. I have to remember. I have to remember what I was to Krishna. What Krishna was to me. I have to remember my life and soul. The bond between Rasikananda and Shyamananda Pandit was amazing. They understood one another, and Rasikananda would often serve his guru with such focused, one-pointed determination. With the first rays of the morning that dispelled the darkness of the world, Rasikananda sat silently watching the path ahead, having faith in the dream that he had had of his guru. After some time, Shyamananda approached from a distance. Surrounded by his disciples and others, he looked as beautifully effulgent as the sun. His smiling face was like the lotus flower that opens to greet the sun, and his chest was as broad as a door. His captivating appearance was made all the more irresistible by the sweet sounds of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda that were emanating from his mouth. If you have never done this, I urge you to try it one day. There are days when if I feel the most stressed, I will sit for a second and I will just call out softly, depending upon where I am, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And I try in those moments to tell the Lord of my stress, to tell the Lord of my anxiety, to invite him in to these experiences with me in my life. If you've never tried it, I urge you, try it. It is one of the best things that I've ever done. And so, can we just imagine the sounds of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda coming from the mouth of Sri Shyamananda, who had seen the Goswamis, who had had darshan of Srimati Radharani and the gopis. Absorbed in an intense love, he moved along the path like the clouds move in the sky. On an auspicious day, Shyamananda initiated Rasika and his wife, Shyama Devi, in the Radha Krishna mantra. After that, Rasikananda began to travel with his guru, during which time he became a very intimate disciple. Shyamananda then bestowed upon him the service of Shri Radha Govinda Dev in the city of Sri Gopi Vallabhpur. So, Rasikananda then goes on to do a great many things. He does indeed become the future of this Vaishnav movement. He starts to revive the kirtans. He starts to revive the preaching. He is so charismatic that he himself begins to amass like a small army of followers. And this small army of followers were very, very fixed in their devotion to their Guru Nishtha. Not everybody was so happy that Rasikananda was preaching in such a way. There was one envious king, one incredibly envious king. And the king had a war elephant. And these war elephants were often filled with intoxicating, substances that would make them more agitated and angry. They were often not treated very well, so they're often hungry. They are very intense. And so this king sends this elephant to disrupt the kirtan party of Rasikananda. And so one day, as all of the devotees are out with Rasikananda, they come upon this path this elephant comes charging toward all of the devotees. The devotees are taken aback, incredibly frightened. There is literally a mad elephant coming toward them, charging toward them. As the elephant gets closer, he sees Rasikananda and he goes to charge. And Rasikananda calls out to the elephant, "Oh, you foolish elephant. You've spent your life uselessly serving this wicked, miserly master. What are you doing with your life? You should take to the chanting of the names of Krishna. Give up this wickedness of heart. Give up these activities and serve Krishna with all of your heart and soul." He's talking to an elephant. The elephant, though, responds. The elephant raises up on its hind legs and then bows down in front of Rasikananda. They say, "Shri Radha Murlidhara ki jai, Shri Gaura Chandra ki jai." They say then that Rasikananda, isn't it? It feels like it's dramatic now, you know, the climax of the story. What will happen? They say that Rasikananda placed his hand on the forehead of the elephant. And then he whispered the Hare Krishna mantra into the elephant's right ear, thus initiating this mad elephant who had come to kill him. Not only does he give the elephant the mantra, not only does he place his hand on the elephant's head, but he gives the elephant the name Sri Gopal Das. This Sri Gopal Das became one of the foremost disciples of Rasikananda. And so Sri Gopal Das would often find and show up at the places where his spiritual master would be preaching Bhagavatam. On one such occasion, well, this is a very special elephant because right after he gets his initiation, the devotees say that that elephant, as elephants do, he bowed down, and you know, you've seen elephants, they put their front legs forward and they put their little heads down, which are big heads, but they're really cute heads. He bowed down to his spiritual master 100 times. Shamananda would often chant to this elephant, and the elephant would shed tears, hearing the nectar of the holy name. If this is the power of the guru-disciple relationship, even with an elephant, then what am I doing? I should be shedding tears. My heart should not be so stone-like anymore. Do I believe? Can I believe that this is possible? If so, then, my dear friends, my dear devotees, as Sachinandan Maharaj likes to say, we have to find Krishna. Any and all of us who have been blessed to find the shelter of a spiritual master, we have to know that this kind of bond is available to us. It was available even to an elephant. It is available to every single living entity. So this kind of bond, this kind of connection with Krishna and Krishna's devotees is available. It's ready and waiting for us. So on one such occasion, Rasikananda was preaching the glories of the Bhagavatam. And in came Sri Gopal Das. And said he would travel quick like the wind You imagine this elephant running. And he runs into the assembly of the devotees. And the devotees get very scared, not knowing Sri Gopal Das. And they scatter in so many different directions. And Sri Gopal Das comes and lays his head at the feet of his spiritual master. Rasikananda says, "Oh, Sri Gopal Das, you've come." Places his hand on the head of the elephant again. And he resumes his lecture. All of the other devotees had gone, but he resumed his lecture for Sri Gopal Das, preaching to his dear disciple. He would tell Sri Gopal Das, "Now, I want you to travel to many of the holy places." Apparently, Sri Gopal Das had in his elephant heart the desire to visit the many places that he had heard about from his spiritual master. He wanted to see Vrindavan. He wanted to see the places where Krishna performed his activities. And now he had gotten permission from his spiritual master. They say that Sri Gopal Das would travel to many of the holy places, and he would do devotional service. He would bring the Vaishnavas what they needed. He would bring them water. He would bring them nice grass for their sitting place. And so he would do Vaishnav Seva. And some say that they even heard this Sri Gopal Das chanting the holy names. I want to know what that sounds like. But this particular story, Rasikananda had so many disciples. But this story of him accepting wholeheartedly an elephant who was meant to kill him as his dear, cherished disciple, giving him instruction, speaking to him, won my heart over. How many times do we as devotees give compassion to other people, but not always think about it in terms of people's pets or other animals? Right? You have a pet, you're in Maya. But now, there is a guru. This is a spiritual master. One of our acharyas. He was willing to initiate birds, beasts, elephants, whatever. Everyone deserved the glory of the holy name. No one should be exempt from swimming in the ocean of the nectar of transcendental love for Krishna. Nor did he think, oh, this is an elephant. How in the world would he be able to understand the nectar of Krishna Prema? He didn't care. He gave that elephant Prema Bhakti and had full faith that this elephant would understand.
Chitta Gopi. Haribol, this is Bhima.
Jai.
What a wonderful class. I'm sorry to interrupt, but on that note, unbeknownst to me while you started and told us this wonderful story of Rasikananda and the elephant, I had 3 little mice with me that I capture in have a heart traps, so they're not hurt at all. In fact, they get a big meal of peanut butter. And myself and my dogs, we've done about probably 30 or 40 little mice that we capture in our barn, because I have a barn with lots of grain. And so we have to capture the mice, and then we have to drive with them. And while we're driving with them, in the traps, I sing the Maha Mantra, and if I only have 2 or 3, I give them each names, and then I set them free about a mile away in this field. So I just thought I'd mention that it's a wonderful thing to see the personhood in everything from an elephant to a mouse, and to know that at least I did some kind of preaching today. So Hare Krishna, thank you for your story.
Yeah, just one note, Bhima Prabhu, on the On mice returning, I heard a mile may not be enough for them. I think they'll come right back.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And the mice have never needed to be afraid of humans. So sometimes I have gloves on. When I let them loose, they kind of hang out around the trap, and so I have to stroke them and push them on the behind and say, Hare Krishna, little one, welcome to your new life. Now you don't have piles of grain. Now you gotta seek for yourself. But you're right, they say 3 miles.
3 miles
Isn't
now.
that amazing?
They're probably attracted to you for more than one reason. They're coming back for the grain, and they're coming back just Siksha and Guru.
I'm saying, you've given them such a beautiful meal. You've given them Krishna Kata. You've given them full initiation, and then you wonder why they keep coming back and bringing their family members.
It's so funny because the traps you can see into, they're purely clear. It's clear plastic. And they look out at me while I have them on the dashboard while I'm driving, looking at your class, and I'm listening to you while I'm singing the Mama Mantra, thinking to myself, okay, well, maybe they'll come back in their next life and help me become a better devotee in my next life.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. So yes, I often, when there are stray cats, etc., especially when it's cold, sometimes I can't help myself. I will bring down some milk. Usually, I will somehow offer the milk and make it maha, and you chant to the animals, and because it's such a. What can we say? What can we say about that soul? That soul who has a body, just like we are souls that have bodies. Who are we to say that they don't get to hear the holy name? So this particular pastime of Sri Gopal Das, it won my heart over. It made it such a sweet interaction. And so one time, it happened again that Rasikananda was giving a lecture. Sri Gopal Das heard, knew that his guru was there, and rushed on the scene. All of the devotees once again got very agitated. And so Rasikananda said, well, my dear Sri Gopal Das, you are agitating the other devotees. So why don't you go away for now, but come back for kirtan later in the evening. So Sri Gopal Das would retreat back into the wilderness, but he would come back every evening for kirtan. This is the eagerness with which we should be running to see our Guru. Gaura Govinda Maharaj was very, very particular about that, about how we should be rushing to see Guru. When Guru is in town, when Guru is around somewhere, somehow, if we can get there, we should be there. This is the Guru Nishta of an elephant, whose name we should remember. Sri Gopal Das was such a beautiful disciple. I want to be able to say, one day, my hope and prayer is that I can say that I was such a disciple. That people might remember me as a good disciple. As people have remembered Rasikananda as a stalwart and beautiful disciple of Shyamananda Pandit. As we remember Shyamananda Pandit. So, my hope for all of us is that Krishna gives us our Guru, and then our Guru gives us Krishna, and that we never forget the wonderful blessing it is just to be here in this Vaishnava movement. May we all be the future of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of Srila Prabhupada's Vaishnava movement. May these talks, may these classes, may these discourses, may these gatherings never ever end. Because they are keeping the world in orbit. These are the things that keep our planet going. Yes, we can also recycle. Yes, we can also do all of the things, but this Krishna Katha is what keeps all of this creation alive. So may we all be the future of this Sankirtan movement. And may we all be splendorous disciples. So much that Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and the Panchatattva and all of these wonderful devotees that we've been hearing about will be proud to speak about us. Thank you so much. Thank you for tolerating me, for giving me the opportunity to even speak about these glorious Vaishnavas this day, and for being able to celebrate yet another Ekadashi with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shri Gopi Devidasi Prabhu. Beautiful class, very inspiring. In fact, I'm inspired to go find some mice or maybe even an elephant.
You don't have to take them home.
They're around. Live in New York. Okay, thank you very much. Have a wonderful Ekadashi. Increase your bhajan, decrease your maya a little bit. Achyuta Gopi Devidasi has inspired us to do so. Thank you very much, Achyuta Gopi. And thank you, Sundarananda Prabhu, Mitra, Vinda Didi, Dana Krishna Radharani, Arjuna Prabhu, Suzanne, Yogeshwari, Bruce, Amita Kishori Didi, Andrea Didi and her family, Ananda Manjari, our scribe, Prema Vinodini, Hare Krishna, Isabel, Isa Spirit Soul, Gail, Pinkergi of Holland, Anna, Saira, Hemalata Radha, Sharmila Devi, Bhima Prabhu, and his furry team, his furry army, Saradia Rasa, Amish Prabhu, Dana Kila Prabhu, thank you very much. Again, Srimad Bhagavatam never ends. Gopi just endorsed that. So come back tomorrow. We'll be here. Zoom, live, in person. Anyhow, this universe, parallel universe, it's all going on everywhere. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful. Hare Krishna.